Hi, I'm in freezing cold Minnesota. Oh, it was 41 degrees this morning when I woke up, and I'm cold. So that's why I have all the clothes on. Hi, Karen Casey. I think Dallas is hot, so this probably looks pretty good to you. But yeah, it's been so cold here since I came to visit. I've only gotten into the lake, I think two, maybe three times. And I love getting into our lake. It's just such a beautiful place, and I just can't get in. And you know how I love water. So it's been really, really cold. But oh well, I'm loving being with my dad and the rest of my family too. All right, so today we're going to talk about trauma, right? Like trauma is rampant right now, right? The weather systems have gotten so extreme. And oh, hey, Birdie Beer, I imagine, Martha, that you know that one. Because right now there's a hurricane bearing down on Florida. And that's scary. I live with that too in Hawaii, and actually have been through two hurricanes living there, and have some trauma, PTSD from those. And then I've been through two lava flows that affected my life pretty traumatically, and lots and lots of earthquakes, big ones. Like the largest one was 6.9 on the Richter scale. And just living through all of that, I realized I had PTSD. And my body involuntarily showed it to me in the last earthquake I went through. It was a 5.7. And when that happened, right as it was happening, I was just like twirling and whirling. And when it stopped rocking and rolling, I ran around in a circle for 5 minutes, probably. I don't know at the time, but a while. Involuntarily ran in a circle. I think I was trying to get away, and I didn't know. I don't know. I wasn't like that conscious. And then I went and threw up. And so I was like, oh, I think I have PTSD from everything I've gone through since living in Hawaii, and probably other stuff that happened in my life too. But that's why I put this practice together that's in the Ageless Move More site, on our Ageless Movement practices this week, because most of us have experienced enough trauma to have some level of PTSD. So we're going to work through that in the practices this week, and it's great. But I'm going to talk about really 6 steps to help you move through trauma. And I know a little bit about trauma because I wrote a book about it with a psychotherapist about 15 years ago now, and actually workshopped that book around, the US, and then took it into prison systems as well. So I know a little bit about this. So these are the 6 steps that I use when working with someone who's experiencing trauma, and of course myself. So step 1 in working through trauma is acceptance. Like until I spun in that circle and then threw up after the last earthquake, I wasn't really accepting that I was suffering from some PTSD. So acceptance is the first step. And how I accept is like whenever, or like after that experience, I just was like, oh girl, gave myself a big hug. So you can even hug yourself right now if you're watching, or you're going to watch this later. Just give yourself a big hug, because you've got some trauma. Now, even if you haven't been through hurricanes and earthquakes and lava flows, and oh yeah, there was a ballistic missile threat that was in there too that got me some PTSD going. But just living in our society right now with the amount of rhetoric that's, kind of not very nice, and shootings, and it's just kind of, we're living in this crazy time. Our institutions are kind of falling apart. And so you can have PTSD just from listening to the news. So give yourself a big hug. So step one is acceptance. Now, step 2 is breath work. So how you work with your breath whenever you've gone through something traumatic, or even if you're just working through trauma that you've experienced in the past, is to begin to lengthen your exhalation. So what I do is I count my breath. So I inhale and count 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I start to lengthen my exhalation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll inhale again. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I get my breath, my out breath, to the count of 6. And once my out breath is to the count of 6, then I begin to hold the bottom of my exhalation. So it looks like this. So I hold the bottom of that exhalation for the count of maybe 2, or to the chant of let go. So let's try this one more time if you're doing this with me. So I inhale. Let go. Then I take an inhale. And I'll do that for 3 to 5 times, and that will calm me down. Works like a charm anytime. I use it a lot when I drive in cities because it really, really helps me calm down. So hopefully it'll help you too. Then the next thing that I do is I take my ball, and this is my softball. I just have it in a sock because I'm traveling and I don't want to lose it. And then I roll that ball into my iliopsoas muscle. So right to the inside of my hip bone, because that's the fear muscle. And so when we've been traumatized, we want to bring that ball right into our iliopsoas muscles. Oh, I rock in toward my pelvic pubic bone, and then I pull back to my hip bone. I go back and forth and work my way down, the whole time breathing. And as I haw out, I'm releasing fear. And when I've done one side, then I'll go to the other side. So I've got acceptance, lengthening my exhalation. I put that ball on the other side if you're joining me. And rolling it down. So in toward my pubic bone, pull back to my hip bone, and rolling down. So acceptance, lengthening the end of my exhalation and holding for the chant, or the count of 2, or the chant of let go. And then rolling the ball in my fear muscle, my iliopsoas, just going to the top of my quad when I do that. So just right in there. So that releases fear. So I'm already starting to feel better. And then my next step is I do some free movement. So free movement is so helpful in releasing stuck trauma, stuck any emotions. But what I'll do is just lie down or sit up, and I'll take some breaths, keeping that long exhalation and holding that bottom of that exhalation. And then I'll just see how my body wants to move. And it might just start making these little movements, or some big movements. I don't know, just depending on what's going on with me. And as your body starts to move, you start to sound. Ha, 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 ha. And you just let your body go for a ride. It's amazing. Like when I do this, this is how I've made up a lot of the movements that I teach. I just allow my body to move freely, and I end up in these very interesting positions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a new pose to teach. So just allow yourself, you can even do it sitting up. Ha, ha, and just freely move. Ha, because your body is wise and it will know how it needs to move, to shake out, to move out. Stuck anything but trauma. I really consciously do it when I'm now working through my PTSD. And then the last bit is relaxing. So just laying back, sitting back, wherever you are, and just letting go for a moment. And just feeling and allowing yourself to feel. And so those are the 6 steps to work through trauma. So we're going to go over them. Acceptance, giving yourself a big hug. Breath, lengthening that exhalation and holding the bottom of your exhalation for the count of 2 or a chant of like, let go. Ball rolling in your iliopsoas muscle just to the inside of your hip bone and down, straight down. I go back and forth, but straight down into that quad. Both sides, releasing fear. That's where we hold fear. And then free movement. Just let your body in its own intuition guide you to release whatever you're holding. Including trauma. And then making sound while you move. And then resting. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, you can ask me questions on the Facebook page, or I also post this to YouTube and YouTube. But it's so good to be with you guys. So this week's practice in Ageless Move More under the Ageless Movement Practices is all about resolving trauma and PTSD. So do your practice. Even if you don't think you have trauma, I guarantee you, you do. Just do the practice and see what happens. Thank you for joining me. Bye.